New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Welcome to I Know You Didn't Ask. I'm your host, Megan O'Donnell, and today we're digging into a tragic murder case that first landed on my radar back in September. At the time, I had never really heard of this up-and-coming musician, D4VD, pronounced David, and terrible for my dyslexia. But over the last few weeks, a flood of disturbing new details have surfaced as a homicide trial surrounding the murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez has officially been underway. The case is fully back in the spotlight, and David remains the main and only suspect to Celeste's murder at this time. So we are going to go into who David is, who Celeste is, how they met, their timeline, and unfortunately, the gruesome details about this murder. The next major court date in this case is currently scheduled for May 26th, when the preliminary hearing is expected to begin in Los Angeles. And don't worry, we will be here reporting on all the updates that happen in this case. So we have a lot to discuss. Buckle up, babes. There's a lot happening here. And as per usual, my sources on these deep dive episodes can kind of run the gamut from New York Times and LA Magazine to Reddit and TikTok. And of course, what I read on Reddit and TikTok, I take with a grain of salt because, it's just a bunch of idiots like myself spewing nonsense. And again, we're talking about the murder of a 14-year-old young girl who was groomed by a up-and-coming musician in the Los Angeles area. So, it's a little bit of a sensitive topic, so to say. So I really tried to stick with major media companies who were reporting on this story with a little bit less of a rubbernecking energy and more about factual evidence that has been reported to try to figure out what has happened to 14-year-old Celeste and how she ended up found in a tow truck yard in Los Angeles in the front of a Tesla. There's so much to unpack here. I will say that there was one article in Wired magazine that really was fascinating about this case. It really showed how technology was very much at the center of how Celeste and David even met each other, and how these groups of fans getting together can kind of create a godlike complex in the person who they're, congregating around. In this case, it was David. I will also say, of course, the New York Times had really great coverage on this case as well. And of course, I was, in the, sloppy rags too. I was in TMZ, but we'll actually learn a bit about TMZ and their biased involvement in this case as well. So, warning up front, this episode will contain discussions of bleak, gruesome murder specifics. There are dashes of child sexual assault. And of course, I touch on fame and religion impacting people's psyche. So this is just a warning for you now. Don't worry. We're going to be getting back to fun and upbeat episodes later this week. One being about, of course, Wes Wilson and Jen Fessler's possible hookup. Yikes. As well as a little bit of Devil Wears Prada part 1, part 2 recap as well. So we have a lot on the docket for the rest of this week that is a little bit more upbeat and fun. But again, this is just a warning. If murder and child predators aren't your thing, this is not the episode for you. So who the hell is David, and why the fuck did he kill this young woman? So let's just jump right into the shit show. So David's real name is David Anthony Burke. He's 21 years old. He was born in 2005. And David's real name is, like I said, David Burke. And not to be confused with a David Burke American restaurateur. If you're from the East Coast, you have been to a David Burke restaurant, for your parents' 40th wedding anniversary or something. It just sucks when your name just happens to be the same as a pedophile murderer. Someone's typing in David Burke and they want to just go for a tavern style meal with their friends and family, and instead they're stumbling upon this gruesome murder. But there's also has to be hundreds of Jeffrey Epsteins out there who are really? You just made my life so much harder by simply having the same name as me. Bastard. So, like David Burke, the restaurateur, David Burke is a born New Yorker. He was born in Queens, New York, and at 13 he moved to a middle-class suburb of Houston. And moving at 13 is brutal for anybody. Not a good time to uproot your life, especially from Queens, New York to Houston. He grew up in a very devout Christian family. He was homeschooled from 8th grade all throughout high school graduation. And you guys know what I think about homeschoolers. And like I said, he was like from a very, very devout Christian family. And oftentimes, very devout Christians homeschool their children because they fear what their kid will be learning in secular schools. At the age of 13, he solely listened to gospel music. He said as a child, he was always very musical. He played the piano and sang in the church choir. And that obviously, shows in his music. And we're going to get to a little bit about his music as well. We'll be getting to a lot about his music, actually. But when someone's from like such a seriously Christian family and they grew up in such like a devout environment, certain emotions and behaviors and feelings like anger or shame or lust or aggression, doubt are oftentimes required to be kind of suppressed rather than being processed. And that repression of those feelings actually ends up doing more harm than good because, people become oftentimes then very good at performing goodness, that because that is what their religion and their family requires of them, while privately kind of unraveling and having really dark kind of fantasies and identities and alter egos in your head because you're not really allowed to act on any of the natural feelings like anger, lust, shame, aggression, whatever that people just naturally go through. So in 2021, David was 16 and was already building a brand as kind of like this socially awkward outcast, a little bit incel vibes, but like he was too cute to be like full on incel. But he nearly spent all of his time online. He described himself as a loner who was chronically online, which kind of seems like the case for many people born in the early 2000s. But he was a loner in real life, but he was really flourishing on the internet. And he actually began posting YouTube videos at the age of 13. But let's like just level set here. I didn't know who David was. Your sister doesn't know David. Your boyfriend likely doesn't know David. Your mom absolutely does not know David. And he's obviously not a household name. Well, he is in my household, unfortunately, at this point. But the kid was on the up and up. He has over 4 million followers on TikTok, where he really went viral. He was signed to Interscope Records, which is major. He was on the same label as Billie Eilish. He was very much known for making this kind of sad boy music that landed him collabs with 21 Savage and Kali Uchis. God knows I'm saying that wrong. He went on tour with SZA. He had brand deals with Crocs and Hollister. He was very much embraced by the K-pop community. And because he was making these montage videos for Fortnite, basically, I guess he would edit gaming clips of him playing Fortnite to music, but he kept finding that his edits were getting taken off of YouTube because of copyright infringements from using other artists' music. So then at that point, his mom encouraged him to start making his own music and using his own music to then go behind, the edits of his Fortnite videos. I have no idea like what that means, but he ended up being seriously embraced by Fortnite. His song Locked and Loaded was actually marketed as Fortnite's first official anthem. He ended up having all of these various types of like gamer packs and gamer add-ons. I like don't even know what I'm talking about. David themed cosmetics, emotes, and jam tracks. So if your children know anything about those items, they were all like David themed. Just as of April and May of this past year, Epic Games, the creator of Fortnite, have immediately stopped putting out any games or associated game cosmetics. I don't know what that means. It's not makeup, but I don't know. Like, I can do 17 pages of research for this, but like I cannot start understanding like what Fortnite is. Like, I do have a line that I need to draw in the sand. But in this kind of rise to fame, he had some major tracks like the song in 2022 called Romantic Homicide, which jumped from TikTok to the top 40 of the Billboard Top 100. He had another song, Here With Me, that also had earned him multiple platinum certifications. And I have to say, his music's actually really great. The songs that I have listened to have been really lovely. And I will say, I only listen to his music on Instagram. I refuse to stream it and give him any more money. But it made sense why he was like growing really rapidly. He came out with great music. And of course, there's like the whole Fortnite element to it. But again, that's like just not for me. But obviously, Fortnite is major for people out there. So it's not shocking that he would be able to build a real serious fan base around his Fortnite videos. He said a lot of his inspiration was from the Smiths and Jeff Buckley, which like makes my white millennial girl's heart sing. Like, the Smiths, hello. Jeff Buckley? if I'm gonna fucking think about Jeff Buckley, I'm exclusively thinking about Marissa Cooper from the OC. If you know, you know. No spoilers. So that's a little bit about who David is. Let's jump into Celeste. So she's an iconic Virgo. Usually the subjects I talk about don't involve like 14-year-olds. I mean, certainly not people born in like the 2000s, let alone 2010. But Celeste was born in September of 2010. She was only 14 years old when she was found dead in September of 2025. She was from Lake Elsinore, California. She was born to parents who immigrated from El Salvador. She was the baby of the family with two older siblings. Celeste was cute, your average middle school girl, big brown eyes, a cleft chin, a middle part with beautiful curly hair falling past her shoulders. She wore a big cross around her neck, also very Christian, and, dressed like your casual little cutie middle school girl. Jeans, sneakers, Gap hoodies, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. And so, again, we don't know as much about her simply as she wasn't the quote unquote famous one, but we will get into more about Celeste, her family life, and how she got mixed up in all of this mess in general. So let's start talking timeline. So we're going to go all the way back to January of 2022. Celeste and David met online when she was only 11 years old and he was 17 years old. And they met through a Discord channel. And if you don't know what Discord is, it's an online platform where people create communities to chat, stream, and hang out with one another in real time. So it's basically a chat forum. It's like Slack. Like if you guys are corporate people, it's like Slack, IM Messenger, but it's just like chat groups with people with similar interests in you. And so Celeste had created a Discord account and had joined a few servers, and David's main Discord channel was called David's Closet. She was also in a Discord server called E-Girl Paradise, which bills itself as a forum for socializing and dating. Channels in the server include Freaky Chat, Matchmaking, and Goon Corner. And I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a sore throat, but Freaky Chat I get. Matchmaking I get. Goon Corner required me to go on the dark web and do a little bit of digging. So basically, Goon Corner is, I should ask my husband if he's heard of this. He probably has. But Goon Corners are, I guess, a type of video of the games that you're watching. So again, like these Fortnite games, people play Fortnite, whatever you do in Fortnite, but you basically record your screen and then you put up what you're doing on Fortnite along with like voiceover or I guess music in David's case, and people watch that. I don't know. But Goon Corner basically means like you take that video, but you also just like throw in a graphic overlay of like a naked or almost naked woman throughout the game's montage. So it's like you're watching, I guess, them build something in Fortnite while also just like looking at big tits. And I mean, I can see the appeal, but I guess Celeste was also into Goon Corners, which, like, I support that entirely. So, yeah, she was in David's Closet. She was in the Goon Corner world, but she was online. And who isn't online, especially, the Gen Z people who are exclusively online? And so we have to obviously kind of talk about the age discrepancy here. At this time that they were meeting, she was 11 years old and he was 17. And I think it is important to talk about the concept of grooming in the context of David and Celeste, because when a lot of people hear the word grooming, they immediately kind of picture something that's like very obvious and sinister, when in reality, like this type of like digital grooming is usually more subtle and even more manipulative in a way. And a lot of times it kind of starts with attention. And, somebody like David, who is an older man, who is successful, his attention towards Celeste gave her maybe validation and made her feel special and understood and even more mature than all the other people around her. And oftentimes in these grooming situations, there is a sizable age gap or imbalances, which I think could even come from like the type of home she came from and this like wealthy 17, 18-year-old guy who like has his own place in Los Angeles, who is traveling the world on world tours, is making tons of money from his internet presence. That creates a major power imbalance. And, that young person, Celeste in this case, like may just not know she has been manipulated in real time and manipulated in many different ways. And obviously, I think a lot of that also is like sexually. And, I think the grooming in this case specifically is like kind of gradual. They probably just were friends, and it was not like introduced as anything nefarious in the beginning. And then gradually over time, boundaries get pushed and the secrecy amongst them becomes very normalized. And then obviously just like an emotional dependence starts. And we'll kind of get into more of like the specifics on like their sexual relationship, which obviously like creates a serious emotional dependence. And, she's a child. So being in those situations where she like also like doesn't know what's happening, she doesn't know what's going on, can also create a fear in their relationship, and again an imbalance between one of another, because she doesn't know what she's doing and he does know what he's doing, and he can shepherd her and protect her. It's just really scary. And also like a lot of times in these kind of power imbalance grooming type relationships, the man is telling them like, this is real. Like, I know you're younger than me, but she's super mature for her age. Like, it's okay if she does X, Y, and Z because she's really mature. When, like, ultimately at the end of the day, like, she's not. She's a child. And she might genuinely, like, really be falling in love with you because you're kind to her and you're older and you're successful and established and giving her these compliments and X, Y, and Z and showing her the world. Will go to some of the places that they've traveled together. Like, it's so fucked up, but this type of imbalance really can create a situation where control is very, very easy, even if it seems like, how did this happen overnight? Like, I think it's a very gradual form of control over time. All right, so let's get back into the timeline. So she was in his Discord server as of early 2022. She had been using the username Celeste, who other people in the chat also believed to be Burke's girlfriend. And in October of 2022, David himself actually posted Celeste in here, question mark, question mark. And she immediately responds to him saying, "Hi, David Bark," as a joke on his name, David Burke. And again, this article that I read and mentioned up front from Wired Magazine was really fascinating because it was talking about the case from the lens of the moderator of the Discord channel. So all Discord channels and Reddit threads have moderators, basically people who are making sure that, the savages who are writing in these threads are following the thread's rules. So they're seeing every single post that comes in or out of the Discord or the Reddit. And so in the Wired article, they really hone in on one of the moderators of both the Discord and the Reddit threads. And this moderator is really able to go back through the Discord channels and find evidence of their interactions with one another from October of 2022. So there's a bit of a paper trail of their conversations. So as of November 2023, it seems like the text messages were showing that a sexual relationship with Celeste and Burke had began. She was only 13 and he is 18 at this time. A year later, in December of 2023, an unreleased demo recorded by David titled Celeste_demo unfin initially leaked online and resurfaced again just a few weeks after the car where her dead body was found. And the song runs for nearly 4 minutes, and lyrics include such lyrics as, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed. Oh, Celeste, afraid you'll only love me when undressed. But you look so damn gorgeous in that dress. Missing you so much makes me depressed." So it seems, again, like they had a relationship that seemed like he was in on it and she was in on it, and it seems like everybody was hunky-dory. And while he's maintaining this relationship with Celeste, he's touring with SZA. He's working nonstop. He's creating music. And even by the end of 2023, he was performing at runway shows in Milan. He was a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live. He was really on a meteoric rise to become one of the next kind of up and coming hot new artists of, the Gen Z demographic. So let's fast forward a little bit to February of 2024 now. So according to the prosecutors, Celeste's parents reported her missing in February of 2024. And her mom had told the cops that she did have a boyfriend named David. And it also seems like some of her friends may have also tipped off the cops that it was actually David, the rapper living in Los Angeles. The sheriff's department contacted him repeatedly after they had identified his phone number from Celeste's phone record. And he picks up the phone eventually and says they met one time in November of 2023, and he claimed to not know that she was a minor. So at this point, he absolutely knew she was 13, 12, 13, whatever at the time. So he can't really play dumb in the future, being unaware that she is clearly a minor and he is a legal adult. It did seem like her home life might have been a bit tumultuous. Reports had shown that her local sheriff's office did report to various calls on alleged battery that had occurred in the home. And it seems like she had also had a history of running away from her family as well. During this time, it seemed like a family friend of Celeste actually sent an email to Josh Marshall, who was the former manager and quote unquote roommate of David's. And in February of 2024, Celeste is missing at this point, and they shared the missing persons report with all of Celeste's information to Josh. Along with her missing persons report, they also shared a note just saying, like, we know she's living with David. You know the information too. You have met her. You need to do something about this. This girl is underage. And Josh Marshall, of course, has come back out and said, like, quote, this has been a tough time for my family as I am a father of 3. I received no emails and I'm no one's roommate. I am full-time at home with my wife and kids. My daughter is 14 and this news is affecting so many lives. I never received any emails. I work remotely. My job doesn't require me to have much information with any of my clients, David, as there are many others to work with him on a day-to-day capacity, not me. I like how he's like, my daughter is so sad right now because I'm associated with this murderer. It's like, do you have no fucking remorse for this poor girl? Like, there is proof that this email was sent to you. And so now you're saying you didn't get it? Because one day after this email was sent, Celeste ends up returning home. And at this time, Celeste's parents take away her cell phone, but David allegedly drove to her hometown, which is about 80 miles outside of Los Angeles where he was living, and he ended up paying one of her friends $1,000 in cash to give her a secret phone. 2 months after she was given that secret phone, in April of 2024, she went missing again. And family didn't really see her too often, but she did end up attending her cousin's graduation in May of 2024. So fast forward a little bit to August of 2024. This was about a year before her body had been found. And David posted in the Discord chat, I'm in a song crisis right now. And one of the dozens of responses was from a user whose account has since been deleted, but it read, drop the one about the missing girl, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. So that one comment signaled to the mods of this Discord channel that maybe he is involved in this random missing persons case. Again, at this time, that had not been a conversation in the public. Us as, voracious celebrity rubberneckers had never heard of, Celeste being missing or being associated with David. So this again kind of harkens back to that concept I was talking about up front about the Wired article that, what you do online lives on forever. So again, at this time, Celeste is still missing and David is becoming bigger and bigger. His fan base is growing. His TikToks are going more and more viral over time. He's collabing with celebrities. He's dressing up in anime clothing. He's on major world tours while this young girl is still considered missing. And during this time, she was traveling with David to Las Vegas, to Texas, where his family lives, and to even London, which is like international sex trafficking. Like, I feel like that's a big no-no. And how does a 13-year-old also like go on planes with someone without like a parent note? Like, I feel like it's kind of crazy that she would even have the ability to get onto these flights since she's like such a minor. And maybe he's flying private, but like I don't think he's doing that well. LA to London private seems like a very expensive trip. But the fact that she had gone to Texas to meet his family tells me that his parents must have been vaguely aware of what was happening. And even if she lied about her age by a few years, saying she was maybe 16 or 17 rather than 13 or 14, which she was, why would his family still not see any red flags about that? Like 16 and 17 is still too young. Why is this young girl not in school and she's traveling around the country and the world with your son, who's again only 17 or 18 at the time? Like, have there been no red flags? And we'll get to more about his family later in this episode. But his brother did recently speak up, basically saying, like, I just want justice for Celeste. He was saying that he did meet Celeste a few times. He said he did not know her well, and he definitely did not know her age. And like in a classic Jamie Spears move, he's like, and by the way, I'm also coming out with some music and don't think I'm doing it because I'm going to cash in on my brother's, recognition right now, but I've always been making music. Like, oh, shut up. But I do give him credit. The kid is the only guy in his family who has actively talked about the case and shown any empathy towards Celeste and her family during this time. And so, again, during this time, we don't really know what's going on. The Discord channel and the Reddit threads are booming, of course. And the Discord channels did know that David did have some kind of girlfriends. And the sleuths kind of saw her everywhere, whether it was screenshots of Instagram stories, the classic kind of like soft launch moment where like a dainty hand is shown in a picture. Supposedly, there was one image where an engagement ring was on her finger. And he also showed matching finger tattoos that read SHHH, shh, which they both had on their fingers. This will come into play a lot more very soon. But on Twitch, the sleuths end up finding that, there's this girl in a hoodie as well as oversized glasses who appears to kind of taunt and embarrass David during his live stream. And this is, allegedly Celeste, and of course wearing, the hoodie and oversized glasses to kind of hide her identity because she's 13 and living with a 18-year-old in his mansion, and she's considered missing. Even during that live stream, she makes jokes about him raping kids, which feels a little close to home. And even in his own music videos, he featured a lot of actors who actually share a shocking resemblance to Celeste. Olive skin, dark curly hair, and just similar facial structures. Before we kind of jump into like more of the gory shit, I do want to talk a little bit about his music because we need to understand the type of artist that he was, both in terms of his lyrics and his visuals. So David was heavily influenced by Japanese anime. So much so that he created a alter ego called Itami. And Itami in Japanese means pain, a bit of foreshadowing. And Itami himself was a blood-soaked, blindfolded character. And he said, Itami has been a character I had for years, even before music. I wanted to put him in comic books. I was writing manga and comic books when I was in middle school. Now, through music, he's been the alter ego and the antagonist of this entire thing. He continues on to say that Itami was wearing a blindfold only to escape his self-made hell, accountable only to pain in a promo video for a song called Petals to Thorns. And in various music videos, he has showed Itami doing really scary things that, again, should have been considered as foreshadowing. In one of his music videos, he dressed up as Itami, his murderous blindfolded alter ego, and stands in front of a woman's lifeless, blood-splattered body while a knife drops from his hand onto the woman. Then, in his hit song, Romantic Homicide, in the video, David stands over this dead woman as he croons, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it." That same video culminates with him and his boys burying them alive in an open grave. And we have to kind of wonder here at this point, like, was David's art that he was creating in these music videos, like, imitating his life? Like, or was it the other way around? Like, his fans were eating this shit up. They very much like ripped apart every lyric and video that he was putting out into the world. And now, of course, in this post murder era, his fans really have ripped apart every lyric and video that he ever put into the world to try to find more Easter eggs about, his motives in his songs as well as, the music videos. A creative alter ego isn't new for many artists, but like I prefer like Beyonce's Sasha Fierce. Like she was simply just like singing, dancing, lifting up single ladies, ultra confident version of herself. Like Beyonce might be more shy and reserved and private in real life, whereas Sasha Fierce was like bold, high energy, gorgeous, and like that's the type of alter ego I stand by. But for David's case, I think we need to harken back to Maya Angelou, because when people show you who they are in their music videos, believe them. But the problem is with David now is that, like, since obviously he's being accused of this murder, like, his audience and audiences in general are just, like, starting to reinterpret everything he's ever put out. Like, this art that he put out, like, is kind of autobiographical at this point. Like, he has created symbolism in his art that is now literally what he is doing in his garage. So it's really dark and really fucking terrifying. Okay, we've diverted off the timeline a bit, so let's get back to November of 2024. David and Celeste reportedly had broken up, but they continued to text one another and continued having texts and conversations about their sexual relationship. And fast forward a little bit to March 2025. We're getting hot, people. Celeste ends up sending David a text message saying, "All we do is have sex and just hang out. Man, I want more than that for myself." So again, this is yet another confirmation of statutory rape happening within this relationship, as well as like her clearly wanting more, which like everybody is, if you've been a young girl, you've like wanted more, you've wanted guys to like you, all of the things, and you don't often know what's right or what's wrong. And again, it's like this validation that you're getting and this attention and this love. And again, you throw sex into the mix and you know, you're not seeing straight, you're not thinking clearly. There had also been text conversations with them during this time about sex, alleged pregnancy, as well as an abortion. And again, she's 13 years old and 18 years old. And if she did end up having to go through the devastating realities of having an abortion, then I imagine this poor girl was gutted about it, as well as just not really being able to talk to anybody in her life about it. Let's not forget the very Christian energy between both of them also created a lot of resentment and fear and anxiety about possibly being pregnant in general, and let alone having an abortion. So I imagine a lot was on this girl's mind. So April 2025, this is when shit starts going down. In early April, David was performing at Coachella, and it seemed all to be going well until he tried to do a fucking backflip. The video of David trying to do a backflip at Coachella is so, I shouldn't say funny. It's like something that would be on like America's, you know, funniest home videos of like a big epic fall. But this motherfucker absolutely had a concussion, and maybe the untreated head injury might have kind of escalated this man's rage because he fucking flopped on his ass. But again, David is performing at Coachella. Major, major, major accomplishment for any artist. Just a couple weeks later, April 22nd, text messages show that David and Celeste got into a very lengthy argument via text. It seems like Celeste was threatening to disclose information about their relationship to, quote, end David's career and destroy his life. He will do that himself, don't you worry. On April 23rd, tickets for David's world tour go on pre-sale. And on that same day, again, Celeste is living at home at this time. She's back home with her parents. She's no longer missing. And on April 23rd, the terrible, terrible day, David allegedly sends an Uber to pick up Celeste from her Lake Elsinore home to bring her to his house around 8:40 p.m. Celeste reportedly arrives to David's home around 10:10 p.m. Soon after she arrives, David stabs Celeste to death multiple times and stood by watching while she bled out. This is again according to the court filings. David reportedly texts her that same night around 10:30 p.m. asking where she is. But the prosecutors believe that she was actually already dead by this time, and the texts were part of a premeditated plan to cover up the murder. And as of this time frame, this was the last date and time her cell phone had any regular cellular activity. And this girl is 13, 14 years old. She's on her phone constantly. A sudden stop in cell phone activity is a very serious tell that she is just literally no longer alive at this time. 1 hour after he sent that text, he drove to Santa Barbara County to dispose and destroy of the evidence. Ooh, I got my fucking Barbara Walters hat on for that section. The next day, April 24th, the day after the alleged murder, David gave a radio interview to promote his new album, Withered, that was supposed to be coming out the next day, April 25th. I watched the interview on the Zach Sang show, and David is cool, calm, collected, and it's shocking and scary to see how he was not showing any physical, emotional signs of erratic behavior of someone who had just murdered the night before. Can you imagine? He's like, I've got a lot on my mind. I just murdered my 14-year-old girlfriend, but sure, let me talk about my new album. The next day, April 25th, 2 days after the murder, David releases his debut studio album, Withered. This is his debut studio album, so there is press around this, marketing. The music video for one of the songs on his new album, One More Dance, actually depicts David placing a bloodied body into the trunk of a car. Foreshadowing again. Fast forward a couple of days later, May 1st, and prosecutors said that David ordered 2 chainsaws on Amazon that are delivered to his Hollywood Hills home. Then just a few days later on May 5th, David orders a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and an inflatable blue pool on Amazon. And according to court documents, he had used a reported fake name, Victoria Mendez. I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, can you please step in? We need to make things harder for murderers. I feel like if you're Amazon purchase history includes body bags, heavy-duty laundry bags, and blue inflatable pools, as well as 2 chainsaws, you should be flagged in the Amazon system. What does a person need 2 chainsaws for? I feel like one doesn't even need 1 chainsaw in a lifetime, let alone 2. But fragments of that blue pool that was purchased on Amazon were actually embedded in the victim's remains, said the prosecution, and that obviously indicated that the blue pool was used to aid in the dismemberment. So prosecutors are believing that she was originally killed, and we'll kind of go into more of those details very soon, on the evening of the 23rd, but it was not until May 5th when her body was unfortunately mutilated. Her remains were dismembered, and 2 of her fingers have actually never been recovered, which is interesting because let's not forget that one of the fingers definitely had that tattoo that they both shared together, and the other finger that has yet to be recovered allegedly had David's name tattooed on it. On May 8th, David then allegedly returns to the same area that he went to on the night of the murder to supposedly drop off more evidence. On May 31st, David allegedly returns to that same area for the 3rd time to drop off more evidence. Fast forward a little bit to July 7th, 2025. David allegedly orders a burn cage on Amazon using a fake to incinerate the evidence. And I like to think I'm pretty up to date on what's going on in the world, but I had never heard of a burn cage incinerator. Also just being available on Amazon, something that you can just easily get. With Prime, I'm guessing, like, can I get a burn cage incinerator here, like, via drone, like within the next few hours? Probably. It's really shocking. But a private investigator hired by the owner of the home that was being rented out to David said that he located the metal box incinerator, which was advertised to burn at temperatures higher, close to 1600 degrees. And this type of burn incinerator is actually not for body parts. It's more for physical evidence, as the visceral fat on one's body wouldn't allow for the body to just like easily burn. It would like take a very long time to burn through the fat. Like, what have I been learning in the past week while studying this aggressively? But again, during this time, the media knows nothing. She is simply a missing person. The cops really kind of haven't been doing much about her missing persons case. It feels like they're kind of like, she's willingly going to this guy's house, and her parents need to step in. And again, we really don't know a lot. Her parents are El Salvadorian immigrants, obviously not familiar with like the highfalutin world of Hollywood celebrities. Like, this guy was living in the Bird Streets area of Los Angeles, like making a ton of money. They probably are like, what the fuck is happening? But like, they probably had an inkling that they knew where she was, but they had no ability to force her to come home. I don't know what was going on there, but she's missing at this time. He's continuing to make music, touring, big things. Lots of good things are happening for him, including an upcoming world tour. So on July 29th, 2025, David's personal Tesla was found parked on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills. And he was last reportedly seen driving that vehicle also on July 29th, 2025, before he had left Los Angeles for his tour. And again, this tour was major. He was going all throughout America, starting on August 5th, ending at the end of November, all throughout America, all throughout the UK, Glasgow, Bristol, London, Zurich, Berlin, Vienna, Prague. This is a major, major world tour. So he parks his car on a random street in the Hollywood Hills and goes about his business. He's like, deuces to my car. And that car is where he ultimately put the remains of Celeste. On September 3rd, that Tesla was cited for a parking violation, I guess violating a 72-hour parking ordinance, and ultimately was impounded and towed to a Hollywood tow yard just 2 days later. The LAPD confirmed that the vehicle had been ticketed 11 days before the discovery, suggesting the body was likely in the trunk of that car the entire period it had been abandoned, starting in July. And on September 8th, 2025, only 2 days after Celeste's 15th birthday, employees at the Hollywood Tow, which is a tow and impound lot, reported a strong, foul odor coming from the Tesla SUV. Mind you, Tesla SUV had Texas license plates linked to David. His family's from Texas, so pretty easy to put two and two together. Like I said, it was registered to him. He was the last person to have driven that Tesla, as well as the car was never reported stolen. So it seems like these were all conscious choices to leave them in, a random suburban neighborhood in the Hollywood Hills. So on September 8th, the LAPD arrive on the scene and find what ultimately would be the remains of Celeste Hernandez. Her remains were found in a black body bag in the front truck, which just found out about the word frunk. And not to sound so incredibly poor, but I had no idea what a frunk was. I had no idea Teslas had frunks. And to me, a frunk sounds like the male version of a fupa. And God knows Elon Musk has a fupa frunk. And so it just all tracks. Like in my head, this makes sense. But this sweet girl was found wearing black leggings and a tube top, which is just like a classic middle school girl outfit. Like she's just wearing her leggings, like let her be. Her arms and legs were removed from her body. The report brutally describes that she had 2 deep stab-like wounds on her torso, one wound to her upper abdomen, which pierced her liver, while the other stab wound was in her chest, right between her ribs, and had damaged all of the surrounding bones. The medical examiners did say that the condition of her body made it incredibly difficult to really fully determine all of these details. We've talked about it before. Being stabbed to death is an incredibly intimate way to die. You're literally watching the person who you think you love stab you to death. I can imagine the worst, most confusing, devastating way to go. As we mentioned, she had the tattoos on her fingers, and both of her fingers that allegedly had the tattoos that involved David were both removed. The medical autopsy team also had described her head as partially skeletonized with significant postmortem deterioration. And just to add insult to fucking injury, her body was also covered in insects. Just fucked up. So this poor girl was stabbed to death, dismembered with a chainsaw, and then was left to decompose in a body bag in the frunk of a Tesla in the hot Los Angeles summer sun for what seems like over 1 month. It is completely inhumane. It is completely sick. And his choice to leave her dead body in his own car, leave the car out in the open, and still have the audacity to plead not guilty is so baffling and confusing to me. It seems like all of his actions were kind of telling me that he wanted to be caught. And I think we'll talk a little bit about this later in the episode, but he's 20 years old, 21 years old. He's a child. He's still a young man. He's still a young boy who's now found money and fame and clout and all of these things that really can fuck your brain up. But he could have just been a stupid young man who's they will not catch me. I'm going to outsmart the cops. They will never know this is me. When he actually had a massive paper trail including fucking Amazon orders, bro. You think like changing your name to Victoria Mendez or whatever it was going to like really outsmart the cops? Like, you're a fucking idiot, bro. So on September 10th, 2 days after the car was found, the news started reporting on this and obviously was associating David with some of the crimes due to some pretty damning evidence. The main one being it's his car where the dead body was found. So this was the time when I was first hearing about this story. Again, just 2 weeks before my wedding. So I was a little bit busy. I did not have the time to devote 50 hours to this case at that time. But on my birthday, my 32nd birthday, September 18, 2025, LAPD investigators executed a search warrant to his Hollywood Hills rental property. They had seized electronic devices, including his computer. They also had a private investigator hired by the property owner come in as well. He was the one who found the burn cage. And at this time, Burke's manager immediately terminated the property lease shortly after this search, and he moved out. The LAPD reportedly found evidence inside the garage completely consistent with the dismemberment of Celeste's body. Many, many samples were taken and all tested positive for blood that had matched the teen's DNA. And one of the main things that really was a big tell in the media, especially with like his Discord group, was the matching tattoo, the shush matching tattoo. That was a huge tell because you can see in many, many photos of David, and you can go to Megan the Podcaster's Instagram and TikTok to see these photos, but you can see he too has the shush tattoo on his finger. So that was very much like a big, big turning point for a lot of his fans, actually associating him with the death of Celeste and having it not just be like a fluke that she just ended up in his car that was abandoned on the street. And at this time, Burke has retained a criminal defense attorney who was known for representing celebrities. He ended up hiring criminal defense attorney Blair Burke to represent him as he claims his innocence in all of this. And Blair Burke, I just want to say, you sold your soul to the fucking devil, you fucking bitch. And she has a list of horrific clients, including Harvey Weinstein, Johnny Depp, Marilyn Manson, Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, Armie Hammer. Truly some of the worst men in America, absolutely the worst men in fucking Hollywood. And now David Burke has been added to this list as well. Blair Burke, how the fuck do you sleep at night, honey? She's sleeping in like her frette sheets in like a $15 million mansion somewhere, but to sell your soul and to protect these abusive piece of shit men for money is so sickening. Like, I cannot even imagine it. But she's also a master at helping handle the PR response to major public blunders. This blunder just happens to be like a very obvious murder, though. But one interesting tidbit about this Blair Burke character is that she's actually described Harvey Levin as a good friend and a vacation buddy. So Harvey Levin is the owner and founder of TMZ. And this connection is particularly noteworthy because TMZ's coverage of the case actually had a lot of articles that positioned Celeste as, you know, this promiscuous teenager who was using fake IDs and was misleading David in their relationship, rather than seeing her for what she is, which is a victim of murder and underage sexual grooming by a fucking adult. And don't get me wrong, you know, she was in this chat room as a teen, doing God knows what, saying God knows what, and, you know, that's not that foreign. I was like a chat room rat when I was a kid. God knows I was in conversations I was too young to be having, talking to strangers, you know, age, sex, location, never forget. Like, I don't know. Like, that's very much like a formative experience for young people online. That's just simply what it is. It's connection, for better or for worse. And she obviously got caught up in it. And the fact that, you know, she bagged the main guy, David, like, you know, she was probably thrilled and she was probably loving her little chat room life. Of course, then it gets, you know, ugly and weird and like, duh, like it always ends poorly. But, you know, meeting the person you meet online is generally pretty scary, especially if you're a teen. I can't imagine. I did have a friend who got severely catfished when we were in high school, and she was like always gonna like meet him at the mall, and then he never showed up. But I actually think I knew the girls who were catfishing this other girl. I think I cracked that case when I was a child. I did have to stop being friends with all of them because I'm like, this is getting too weird. I am not Neve Schulman. Like, I cannot crack this catfish case. Like, I can't be the one who ruins this relationship. Like, people are always online seeking attention, trying to find people to talk to them, trying to find people to connect with them. And in this case, like, it obviously like went way too far with them meeting in person, having a sexual relationship, her going on tour with him. Like, all of it has like been completely taken too far. And so now for TMZ to have a very, very clearly biased coverage of this clear and utter murder that David committed is fucked up. And again, that's media, baby. That's showbiz. It's not surprising that Blair Burke and fucking Harvey Levin are, sipping Mai Tais together in Hawaii, laughing all the way to the bank as they, do smear campaigns for a dead 14-year-old instead of like, putting fucking David Burke behind bars. So, a few days after the car was found, the fallout was pretty swift for David. He did continue performing across various cities in the US directly after the car was discovered, while, of course, maintaining full innocence. On September 19th, David did halt the release of his new album, Withered Deluxe. His Interscope also canceled his upcoming tour schedule. And then a few days after that, people started pulling their songs with David off of streaming sites. His Hollister campaign was dropped. And, since this time in late September, things have been quite quiet. He's been chilling, laying low, obviously not posting on social media or making music. God, no, Blair Burke was like, shut the fuck up. You are so goddamn guilty. Like, anything you say will just make you somehow even more guilty, and you already are so blatantly and obviously guilty. And so God knows what this kid's been up to since then. And like, can you just imagine you just like murdered someone and now you're just like sitting around like your house, like waiting to get caught? Like, it'd be so hard to like read a book or like binge watch a show when you know you're about to get nabbed for murdering your child's bride. Like, what? Like, I can't even imagine. And also, like, knowing how sloppy your murder was, like, you must know, like, oh, fuck, I'm gonna get caught. But again, like, the initial shock of this case kind of wore off. It had faded from the public eye just until a couple of weeks ago when the trials started back up again. And obviously, the nature of this case, which involved a murdered minor as well as like alleged sexual situations, really required for the justice system to really keep this out of the public eye for a while. It really just wasn't until a few weeks ago when more evidence started coming out, and it obviously became very clear. Authorities were realizing, all right, I think we got the right guy. I think we cracked the case. Can we wrap it up? Do we need 3 years of legal proceedings to say that this guy obviously did it? On one night on September 22nd, again, this is a piece from the Wired article that I really found interesting, was that one of the moderators of the Discord chat was talking on a David subreddit, trying to talk about her involvement in the case, and she had explained that David actually reached out to her directly to delete one of the Twitch live streams that David had posted on the Discord or on the subreddit, I don't remember, because it technically violated Twitch's community guidelines, because the woman in the video was in fact Celeste, and they had been making references to sexually assaulting children. So it's interesting that David did have some discernment to realize, I have to take that video down because I'm clearly doing something inappropriate with this minor. I'm not going to stop doing it in real life, but I'm going to stop posting about it. So fast forward, the holiday season come and go. January 15th, 2026, David's parents, Colleen and Dawood Burke, D-A-W-U-D, very interesting way of spelling David across this whole episode. His parents were subpoenaed to testify before an LA grand jury. 2 days later, Celeste's passport is found by a Caltrans worker in Santa Barbara County, which is the exact same area where David had previously visited 3 times prior. 1 month later, on February 12th, the Burke family challenges the subpoenas in Texas, basically arguing that they are denied due process. And they're basically saying, like, hey guys, like, we're going to try and attempt to block or limit, the investigators from obtaining certain records and information connected to this case. Naturally, Texas appeals court denied the family's petition requiring them to comply. Like, again, Can you imagine just being like, actually, you can't go through that phone? Yeah. Well, it's just murder, whatever. But like, you can't go through that phone. Sorry, like you can't go through his Discord. It's not okay. You cannot go through that. Like, and I do think his parents were like kind of involved in a sense, but again, we'll get further into that in a little bit later in this episode. Which, like, how many times am I going to say that? I've been talking for 6.5 hours at this point. Prosecutor Beth Silverman also said there had been a significant amount of child sexual abuse materials on his phone and computer. So, like, I can imagine his family is trying to hide something, but like, the jig is up. Your son murdered someone. Like, it's obvious and clear as day. Who else murdered her if it wasn't your son who has her blood all over his garage? Like, to me, it's like a waste of time. Like, do we need due process? Like, can't we just like see quite literally the writing on the wall, the blood on the wall? Like, he did it. What are we wasting our time going back and forth on this? It's foolish. So on February 25th, 2026, Eyewitness News obtains Texas court documents stating that David is the main suspect. He is going to be labeled as the main target with one confirmed allegation of one count of murder. And on April 16th, 40 terabytes worth of evidence was shown in the courts. And how you have 40 terabytes of anything is shocking. And my thought process immediately goes back to Jeffrey Epstein. If you put all of Jeffrey Epstein's evidence onto hard drives, it must be like 6,000 terabytes worth of files. And 40 terabytes is a lot, people. Like, I'm a hard drive girly at work. I'm always talking hard drives, always, dealing with lots of heavy files. And 40 terabytes worth of materials is a fuck ton of evidence. So at around 5 p.m. on April 16th, David was arrested at his Hollywood Hills residence. He was booked at the LAPD 77th Street Station at 11:12 p.m. that very night. He is held without bail. And I feel like this is embarrassing for a man. But his booking records listed him as 125 pounds. And he's literally a man child. He's a little boy. How am I 30 pounds heavier than David? And he has the ability to murder? I don't know. It's crazy. But he is, again, a child. And then on April 20th, 2026, worst 420 ever, David is formally charged with first-degree murder, continuous sexual acts, lewd sexual acts with an individual under 14 years old, and mutilating the human remains of a body. He will continue to remain in custody on no bail. Naturally, his team said, not guilty. Fucking fools. The LA District Attorney Nathan Hochman alleges that David had a long-term sexual relationship with an underage girl while he was clearly an adult. He killed her to try to protect his career and chose to dismember her and leave her body in the car. So at this time, Celeste's family has obviously come out and made statements saying she was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. They're devastated, the usual. On April 29th, David returned back to court. And of course, the legal briefing really painted a gruesome picture of the prosecution's case against the singer. Of course, his dumb bitch lawyer, Blair Burke, described the brief as very one-sided view of what's anticipated to be the evidence in the case, and expressed concern that the jurors for the future trial could be misled or tainted, especially with heightened media attention. And don't you dare try to fucking mistrial this case, honey. I'm onto you, Blair Burke. Like, her even saying the jury being misled or tainted is hilarious. And a mistrial is when a trial is completely declared invalid before a verdict is reached because they say that something is unfairly swaying the outcome of this case. So I'm on to you, bitch. You're not going to get out of this one. And honestly, guess who was in the court right across the hall that same day? Nick Reiner, the son of Rob and Michelle Reiner, who also is a nutjob who just decided to up and kill his parents one day. So mental health is really important here, people. We'll get to that PSA towards the end of this episode. I have to end this episode. I've been talking for far too long. But of course, let's just quickly kind of wrap things up and try to figure out why he did it. It's clear that he had killed her because she potentially was threatening to expose their relationship, thus ruining his music career. And it's hilarious that he's like, this girl is going to ruin my career by exposing the fact that I've been having a relationship with an underage girl. So the only way to get her off my back is to kill her. as if killing her isn't also subsequently going to ruin his career and ruin his life. And not to say that, like, this could have gone away, but let's not forget the world that we live in. R. Kelly is a perfect example. Since the early 90s, when he was 24 years old, he was dating a 15-year-old girl. And we all collectively forgot as a society that he had been doing creepy shit with younger girls for a very long time. It wasn't until he was in his 40s or 50s that, like, the collective society was like, this should stop. Like, he's been doing this for far too long. So, not to say that David, wasn't in the wrong for obviously grooming and sexually assaulting a minor, but like, if he was so fearful about his future and his career, he probably could have called Blair Burke and said, "Can you help pay this girl off? Give her $100,000, make her sign some paperwork to say if she ever speaks up, she'll be sued to holy hell." And everyone probably would have moved on. And again, not to say that that's like a good solution to this massive problem, but if he really wanted to get rid of her, he could have in other ways. But instead, he decided to kill her in a weird and gruesome and perverse way, and to then flaunt the way he would kill her throughout music videos and throughout his own fucking lyrics. Like, that's a choice. That's a choice that you are making, that 50-50 shot, I'm gonna get caught. And he was, again, very sloppy, using his Amazon Prime account to buy burn incinerators and body bags. Like, you're a fucking idiot. And you're also driving a Tesla, which is like a fucking smart car. That car knows that car tracks every time you open a door, every time you drive anywhere. So the fact that then he goes to the same location in Santa Barbara on 3 separate occasions to drop off evidence from God knows what he was using to murder her. Like, you don't think that any of this type of clearly trackable, traceable information is going to obviously prove your guilt in murdering Celeste? Like, it's shocking to me. So for him to say, I had to kill her to preserve my career, is just so foolish and dumb. And honestly, now we just wait. The date of the preliminary hearing has been moved to May 26th. The evidence will be presented, and witnesses are also expected to be called upon. Due to the nature of the sexual abuse of a minor charges, cameras will not be allowed in court. Again, I will be reporting on this in just a few weeks, but I mean, he's guilty. So let's just like stop wasting our time. Like, his lawyers are just like, another late night at the office, like ordering Grubhub on the company dime. Like, we all know he is guilty. Like, but they're going to obviously try to find some kind of weird loophole to get him a shortened sentence, to make his stay in prison a little bit more comfortable, maybe. But we all know how this works, especially with these high profile cases, especially if murder's involved. But these lawyers will draw out this inevitable guilty verdict, and while they draw it out, they will be lining their pockets. Their beach houses will grow larger. The backyard's getting a new tennis court next year, all while they, sit around and defend for their life a fucking murderer. It is so fucked up. This story really just devastated me because I was a young girl once, and it's easy to end up at the wrong place in the wrong time with the wrong guy. And I can't even imagine what her family is going through at this time. And so, this is obviously the worst version of what can happen when you meet a guy online, a famous man especially. But, I hope I hope this episode can help you teach your sons and future sons to, be respectful to women, value them, not just try to like fuck them and take advantage of their, emotional naivete. Let's encourage men to find other outlets than sitting online and playing video games all day. Paint by numbers kits, softball, I don't know. Woodworking, I don't know, but I think we just need to encourage people to like get offline a little bit, to start having like real relationships with people. So your conflict management skills don't just lead to murder. Like you don't just say, okay, I'm just gonna murder this bitch so she shuts up. Like maybe you can find like a way to like have a conversation. Like maybe try to, peacefully break up and end the relationship. You don't need to dismember a poor girl and stick her in the fucking frunk of your car and let her burn up in the Los Angeles heat. It is just fucking terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I hope David rots in hell, you fucking pedophile loser. And you know what? Nothing is worse than hell to a devout Christian. So yeah, I hope you rot in hell. I hope you never get out of prison. If David is ever walking around the streets in a couple years, cross to the other side. Don't get mixed up with this fucking weirdo. Thank you so much for tuning into my David deep dive. This one took very, very long to produce and edit and write, and I'm so excited for it to come out. Oh my God, it's going to take me a million hours to edit. But thank you so much for listening to I Know You Didn't Ask. This week we have more awesome topics. Wes Wilson and Jen Fessler, romance drama, Devil Wears Prada conversation. And then my next little thing I'm focusing on is the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation. Because that is over in court. It's done with. So it's finally time for me to get in there and start doing some, deep dive reporting on what really went down between those certifiable losers. Well, thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week and be sure to subscribe to I Know You Didn't Ask so you don't miss another great episode. Bye. New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube.